Google has finally made a smartwatch, but can the Pixel Watch steal the crown from, well, you know who? So, hands up, or hand up, I have had the Pixel Watch on my wrist for about a week now. And if Twitter and Instagram are anything to go by, people are really interested in this device. What does it look like in person? How big is it? How small is it? What's the Fitbit integration like? Do you need a Fitbit Premium account? Is the battery any good? What's WearOS like compared to watchOS? And unavoidably, is it a good alternative to the Apple Watch? Let's talk about the unboxing experience first, because this was really quite something special. And when you first open the top of the box, you're presented with this on a little kind of stand, and it looks like a piece of jewellery. And more importantly, and I had this with the Apple Watch Ultra, it felt really new. You know, it wasn't just like unboxing another Apple Watch. It comes in 3 colours: champagne gold, matte black, and polished silver, which is this one. It's also made from 80% recycled stainless steel, and the active band that I have on this one is that thing that I can't pronounce. It's fluoroelastomer with a soft touch coating. Literally no idea what that is, but it feels very, again, I'm sorry to keep saying Apple Watch, but it's the obvious reference. It feels very Apple Watch sports band like. You get 2 buttons on the Pixel Watch. One of them is a crown as well, and it's a really nicely weighted crown. Very satisfying to twiddle around and just enough stiffness. And if you press the crown, you get taken into the apps list, and if you long press the crown, you get given power options. The other button just above the crown gives you a list of the most recent apps that you've used, but it also initiates Google Assistant, which I'll come on to later. I'm happy to report that the screen is nice and bright, very legible in direct sunlight. I do need to admit something here, which will relate to the battery test stuff later on, and that is that I wasn't aware there was an always on display with this. Because it's turned off by default, I assumed, stupidly, that there was not an always on display on the Pixel Watch. It's in the most obvious place in the display settings, but I can confirm that the always on display on this Google Pixel Watch is very good. Not too bright, doesn't get in the way, and you retain the stuff that you want to see. But going back to the design, it's a really pretty little thing. There is one caveat with this, which is that I don't think it suits my wrist and my taste particularly well. Now, this might be down to Apple Watch Ultra syndrome, I'm completely conscious of that, but it feels a little bit too small for me. I just like bigger watches, and the Pixel Watch is a fairly small wrist device. But as with any wearable, as with any watch really, you've got to try it on before you commit to buy. It's also got a round face, which I really like. Most watches have round faces. I've always thought that the Apple Watch would be better one day as a round watch. That will never happen. But Android smartwatches, I think, pretty much universally are circular. So it's very attractive. The materials used are very nice. It feels very premium, but it's going to be an acquired taste, I think. But with a starting price in the UK of £339, it's almost worth a punt. My experience with WearOS on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro hasn't been that great. I've described this watch as being functional and able to get the job done, which isn't high praise. I do like it, by the way. It's a great overall watch, but the sluggishness of the operating system is a bit of a pain. With that in mind, I was worried about the Pixel Watch, I'll be completely honest. I thought it might be the same sort of experience, and that was particularly the case when I heard that it's running an Exynos chip. It's the Exynos 9110 chip, no idea what that is, but the good news is it's a pretty smooth operator. WearOS on the Pixel Watch feels pretty fluid. And despite a few stutters here and there, which are quite rare thankfully, you can fly around this thing pretty quickly. Now that brings me onto the positioning of the Google Pixel, and it's really interesting. If you look at Google's homepage for this watch, they highlight 3 things. The first is that it gives you help from Google Assistant. The second is all about their fitness partnership with Fitbit. And the third is the way that it seamlessly integrates into the Pixel ecosystem. Now just quickly on the latter, I haven't tested this fully with the Pixel Buds yet. I will be doing that quite soon. But in terms of the ecosystem with the phone, with the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro, it works perfectly. It's seamless, it never drops connection. Setting it up took a little while, but it was quite painless really. But let's dig into those other 2 points. We'll start with fitness, because this is basically a Fitbit in Google clothing. But that isn't a bad thing. I'm not poking fun at it, because Fitbit have been in this game for years. They really know what they're doing. This does, however, mean that you need a Fitbit account to make the most out of this as a fitness device. Now, you get 6 months of Fitbit Premium for free when you buy one of these, but I've not got that at the moment. I've just been using the free Fitbit account. And for my use case, which is tracking runs and occasionally looking at the data that it produces, it works fine. And even though I'm not really the sort of person to really dive into my fitness performance, whenever I have done that in the Fitbit app, it's quite an enjoyable place to be. I love the way the data is presented, it's attractive, and for someone like me, it's easy to understand. And the fitness tracking is great. I go for runs most days, and I've been taking this with me each time. Measuring this stuff is very difficult, obviously, but I've ran with both this on and my Apple Watch Ultra on, and they pretty much match up when it comes to distance and calories burnt. But the big play with this, as far as Google's concerned when it comes to fitness, is the heart rate monitoring. And it does this by the second. So right now, 90, I don't know if that's quite high or not, 95, 94, 96. It's literally by the second. And that obviously helps give you much more accurate readings during a workout, but it's also for rest and also for sleep tracking. And just very quickly on sleep tracking, that works brilliantly. I wasn't sure how to instigate it to begin with, but you just go to bed and it just works automatically. And that means you don't have to think about it, which is fantastic. But going back to the heart rate thing, I obviously have no way of checking this and verifying it because I'm not a doctor, but it's just nice to know it's got such close tabs on my heart rate. Initial impressions are that this is a fantastic fitness device, which it really should be with Fitbit involved, and I think the Fitbit partnership works perfectly. I was worried that it might get in the way or be a bit confusing, but everything from the setup to using it to reviewing the data is really convenient. It just makes total sense. In the battle of the digital assistants, I think the Google Assistant has always been the best. Alexa somehow gets worse over time. Siri is... Alexa, stop! Brilliant. There you go. Alexa, stop! Point proven. Siri is just biblically annoying and doesn't do the things you want it to do. And then Samsung, what's it called? Begins with B. Bertie. The Samsung one. I think Google Assistant always pretty much nails the voice recognition, but also it always gives you answers. So to have that on here is actually fantastic. It does the obvious stuff. You can set timers, you can respond to messages, but where it completely smashes the other assistants is just asking inane, out of the blue questions. You can ask this thing pretty much anything and it responds with an answer that is actually useful. But it's been quite a revelation for me because I've been so fed up with Siri on the Apple Watch just not doing what I want it to do. And if I had to put my hat on the table now and choose between the fitness capabilities of this and the assistant capabilities, I think I'd choose the assistant. You just rarely have to pick up your phone, which is surely the point of these things. But I know you guys are desperate to hear about something else to do with this watch. So, battery life. As I mentioned earlier, I did screw up slightly with this because I didn't think there was an always on display. Now we know that there is, but mine wasn't turned on. So the numbers that I'm about to give you are with the always on display turned off. And the long and short of it is that this watch will get you through a day, no problem at all, and through a night of sleep tracking. But you will need to charge it in the morning. That's fine, that's Apple Watch battery life. It's what we've come to expect with current smartwatches. But it does go a bit further. It does some very interesting things. I've made some notes, as you might guess. So I went to London yesterday to film my Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro review, and in total I did 18 miles of walking and 36,000 steps. All of that was tracked via the Pixel Watch. But where it gets really interesting is that by about 1:45 in the afternoon, I'd done 17,000 steps at that stage, and the battery had 77% left. I wasn't tracking a workout with it, I just left the watch on. But don't forget, it was doing that second by second heart rate monitoring. And by 9:30 PM when I finally got home, it had done the 36,000 steps and the 18 miles of tracking, and it still had 46% battery left. That's quite impressive. And okay, I wasn't using it constantly throughout the day or running workouts through it, but it's nice to know that if you go out on a really long day like that, a really big family trip out or something, you haven't got to worry about the battery at all. It's nearly a 2-day smartwatch, but it's not quite there yet. You will need to charge this in the morning, particularly if you use sleep tracking. I'm actually surprised by the Pixel Watch. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I do. I love the round face. I love the fact that WearOS feels fluid and smooth most of the time. The battery life gets the job done as intended and sometimes surprises you. And I think that partnership with Fitbit is a stroke of genius on Google's part. The only thing for me is the design, and I think this is a case where it isn't quite right for me in terms of the look and feel. That's a completely personal preference. My daily watch of choice is the Apple Watch Ultra, which is huge and way too big for a lot of people. And that might mean that to you, the Pixel Watch is the perfect timepiece / wrist computer for you. And it has got a lot going for it. That Fitbit integration, the brilliant Google Assistant, and the fact that it is so well made and just looks so pretty. They've positioned it perfectly, they've partnered with the right people, and I think a lot of people are going to love this. What I'd love to see, Google, is a slightly bigger one. If we could have that, we're really onto something. Now, if you've still got some time and you want to see the result of that 18-mile, 36,000 step trip yesterday to London, keep watching for a link to my full review of the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro phones.